The neon sign outside Dusty's bar flickered against the Nevada night, casting shadows that danced across cracked pavement. Inside, Maya Thompson wiped down the sticky countertop for the third time that hour, her shoulders aching from another double shift. At 21 years old, she'd already learned that life didn't hand out favors. You worked for every single thing you got. She glanced at the clock, past midnight. Her younger brother Terrell would be asleep by now, probably with his college acceptance letter still tucked under his pillow. That letter was everything. It was why Maya worked 70-hour weeks at this rundown bar in Reno. It was why she smiled through exhaustion, why she never complained when customers got handsy or rude. Terrell deserved better than the life they'd grown up in, and Maya would break her back to give it to him. The bar wasn't fancy. Worn leather booths lined the walls, the jukebox played songs from another decade, and the clientele was rougher than sandpaper. But it was honest work, and the regulars, especially the motorcycle club that claimed the corner booth most nights, treated her with unexpected kindness. The Hells Angels weren't what people thought. Beneath the leather and tattoos, most of them were just men who'd made mistakes and were trying to find their way back to something decent. Ryder Jackson was their unofficial leader. Tall, broad-shouldered, covered in ink that told stories he never spoke aloud. He'd been coming to Dusty's for years, always quiet, always respectful. Maya had caught him watching her sometimes, not creepy, just protective, like he saw something in her that reminded him of someone he'd lost. Tonight, the usual crowd filled the booths. Laughter mixed with classic rock, pool balls cracked against each other, and Maya moved between tables with practiced grace. She was good at making herself small, at slipping through spaces without causing trouble. It was a survival skill she'd learned young. She didn't notice the stranger until he was already 3 drinks deep, his voice cutting through the music like broken glass. Part 2, When Kindness Meets Cruelty. The man sat alone at the bar, and everything about him screamed danger. His eyes were cold, his smile cruel, and the way he looked at Maya made her skin crawl. She'd served plenty of drunk customers before, but something about this one felt different. Wrong. "Another whiskey," he slurred, slamming his glass down hard enough to rattle the bottles behind the bar. Maya kept her voice steady and professional. "Of course, sir. Just one moment." She poured carefully, hands steady despite the warning bells ringing in her head. When she set the glass in front of him, she turned to walk away, but his hand shot out, fingers wrapping around her wrist like a vice. "Where you going so fast, sweetheart?" His breath reeked of alcohol and something meaner underneath. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her expression calm. "I have other customers to serve, sir. Please let go." "I don't think so." His grip tightened, fingers digging into her skin. "You'll stay right here and keep me company. That's what they pay you for, isn't it?" Around them, conversations quieted. People were watching now, but no one moved. Maya had seen this before. Good people who turned invisible when confronted with violence, too afraid or too uncertain to intervene. "Sir, you're hurting me." Her voice remained steady, though fear crawled up her spine. "Please release my wrist." Instead, he yanked her closer, his other hand reaching toward the collar of her shirt. "Let's see what you're hiding under." The fabric tore with a sickening rip. The top button of Maya's shirt flew across the bar, bouncing once before disappearing into the shadows. Time seemed to freeze. The music kept playing, but everything else went silent, that terrible, suffocating silence that comes right before a storm breaks. Maya stood there, one hand clutching her torn shirt, the other still trapped in the stranger's grip. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. The man smirked, scanning the room with drunken arrogance. "What? Nobody gonna save the little waitress?" That's when the chair scraped across the floor, a sound like thunder rolling across desert plains. Part 3, Thunder Rising. Ryder Jackson rose from the corner booth like a mountain coming to life. His movements were slow, deliberate, each step carrying the weight of barely contained fury. Behind him, 3 other Hell's Angels stood in silent solidarity: Marcus, Danny, and Old Joe, who'd been riding since before Maya was born. The stranger finally released Maya's wrist, but his smirk remained. He was too drunk to recognize real danger when it stood right in front of him. "You got a problem, old man." The stranger's laugh was ugly, mean. "This ain't your business." Ryder stopped 3 feet away. Up close, he was even more imposing. 6 feet 4 inches of muscle and scars, tattoos crawling up his neck, eyes that had seen too much darkness to fear anything this world could throw at him. But when he glanced at Maya, something soft flickered across his face. Something almost gentle. "You just made the worst mistake of your miserable life," Ryder said, his voice so low and calm it was somehow more terrifying than shouting. "That girl works harder than you ever will. She's kind to people who don't deserve it, and you just put your filthy hands on her." The stranger wobbled to his feet, puffing out his chest in false bravado. "What are you gonna do about it? You think those patches scare me?" Marcus moved to Ryder's left, Danny to his right. Old Joe positioned himself near the door, not to block the stranger's exit, but to make sure no one else got hurt in what was about to happen. Maya stood frozen behind the bar, one hand still clutching her torn shirt, the other pressed against her racing heart. She'd never seen Ryder like this. None of them had. The man who always said please and thank you, who left generous tips and asked about her brother's college applications, that man was gone. In his place stood someone forged in fire and fury. "Last chance," Ryder said quietly. "Apologize to the lady. Get on your knees and beg her forgiveness." The stranger spat on the floor. "Or what?" Ryder's fist moved so fast Maya barely saw it. One moment the stranger was standing. The next, he was sprawled across the floor, blood streaming from his nose, eyes glazed with shock. The jukebox skipped, then went silent. Part 4: The Breaking of Masks. Maya gasped, her free hand flying to her mouth. She'd never seen violence like that, not up close, not real violence that left men broken on barroom floors. But as she looked at Ryder, standing over the stranger with knuckles split and bleeding, she didn't feel fear. She felt something else entirely. Safe. For the first time in her life, someone had protected her. Not because they wanted something in return, not because it was their job, but because it was right. The stranger groaned, trying to push himself up. Ryder placed one heavy boot on his chest, pressing him back down with just enough force to make a point. "Stay down," Ryder commanded. "Marcus, call the police. Tell them we got a man here who assaulted one of our own." "Our own?" Maya's voice came out barely above a whisper. Ryder looked at her then, and his expression softened completely. He shrugged off his leather jacket, the one with the Hell's Angels patch worn smooth by years of riding, and walked over to drape it across her shoulders. It smelled like motor oil, leather, and safety. "Nobody touches you like that again," he said, his voice gentle now, almost tender. "Not while I'm breathing. You understand me, kid?" Maya nodded, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. They weren't tears of shame or fear anymore. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of something breaking open inside her chest that had been locked up tight for too long. The police arrived within minutes. Dusty's was close enough to the station that officers knew to come quick when trouble started. But as they walked in, surveying the scene, Maya with her torn shirt and borrowed jacket, the stranger still bleeding on the floor, 4 bikers standing like sentinels around them, it was clear who the victim was and who'd crossed the line. "He grabbed her," Ryder told Officer Williams, a veteran cop who'd been breaking up bar fights for 20 years. "Tore her shirt. Cameras caught the whole thing." Officer Williams looked at Maya. "That true, miss?" She nodded, finding her voice stronger now. "Yes, sir. He wouldn't let go when I asked. Then he ripped my shirt." Part 5: The Aftermath's First Light. The police took statements from everyone. The security footage confirmed every word: the stranger grabbing Maya, the torn shirt, Ryder's intervention. By the time they led the man out in handcuffs, still muttering drunk threats, the first light of dawn was creeping across the desert horizon. Maya sat in one of the booths, Ryder's jacket still wrapped around her shoulders, watching the other Hell's Angels clean up broken glass and rearrange overturned chairs. They moved with quiet efficiency, these men the world feared, treating Dusty's bar like it was sacred ground simply because Maya worked there. Old Joe brought her a cup of coffee, extra cream the way she liked it. "You all right, darling?" "I think so." Maya's hands shook slightly as she accepted the cup. "Thank you, all of you." Ryder slid into the booth across from her. Up close, she could see the gray threading through his dark hair, the lines around his eyes that spoke of hard years and harder choices. His knuckles were swelling where they'd connected with the stranger's face. "You should ice those," Maya said softly. He waved her concern away. "I've had worse." "Listen, Maya," he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "What happened tonight, that ain't on you. You did nothing wrong. That man made his choices and he'll pay for them." "I know, She took a shaky breath. "I've been grabbed before, catcalled, disrespected. I always just took it because I needed this job. I needed the money for Terrell's tuition. But tonight when he tore my shirt I felt so small, so powerless." "You ain't powerless," Marcus interjected from where he was sweeping glass. "You're the strongest person in this whole damn bar. You work yourself to the bone for your baby brother, you smile through garbage treatment, and you still manage to be kind to everyone who walks through that door. That's strength, Maya. Real strength." She looked around at these men, these supposed criminals, these outlaws with their leather and scars, and saw something she'd never expected to find in a place like this. Family. "I want to thank you properly," she said, looking at Ryder. "Not just for tonight, but for seeing me, for treating me like I matter." Ryder's expression softened. "You do matter, kid. Don't ever forget that." Part 6. Building Bridges from Broken Pieces. A week later, Maya showed up at the Hell's Angels garage on the outskirts of Reno. She carried a paper bag, her hands shaking slightly despite her determination. Inside was a homemade sweet potato pie, her grandmother's recipe, the one she only made for special occasions. The garage was exactly what she'd imagined. Motorcycles in various states of repair, tools hanging on pegboard walls, the smell of grease and metal thick in the air. When Ryder saw her standing in the doorway, he actually laughed, a sound she'd never heard from him before. "You didn't have to do that, kid." But Maya insisted, stepping forward with the pie held out like an offering. "I wanted to thank you, not just for what you did, but for reminding me that I'm not invisible, that I matter to somebody." The other club members gathered around, and what started as a simple thank you turned into an afternoon of stories and laughter. They told her about their lives. Marcus had been a veteran who came home to nothing. Danny had made mistakes young and paid for them in prison time. Old Joe had lost his family to his own bad choices and spent years trying to earn redemption. These weren't the monsters the news made them out to be. They were broken men trying to piece themselves back together, finding purpose in loyalty and brotherhood when the rest of the world had given up on them. "You know what you could help us with?" Ryder asked as they shared the pie. "We've been trying to organize a charity drive for homeless veterans. Marcus knows plenty of guys who need help, but we ain't good at the paperwork and planning side of things." Maya's eyes lit up. "I could do that. I'm good with organizing." And just like that, something shifted. Maya became more than just the waitress they protected. She became part of their family. They started calling her Little Angel, and she brought a light into their dark corner of the world that none of them had realized they needed. She organized food drives, coordinated with local shelters, helped veterans navigate VA paperwork. The Hell's Angels provided muscle and resources, but Maya provided heart and direction. Together, they started changing their small corner of Reno, one act of kindness at a time. Part 7. The Return and the Reckoning. 4 months passed. Summer heat baked the Nevada desert, and Maya had just finished her shift at Dusty's when word came. The stranger who'd attacked her was out of jail. He'd been released early for good behavior, and according to sources, he'd been asking around town about the bar, about her. The Hells Angels wanted to handle it their way, but Maya surprised them all. "No," she said firmly when Ryder suggested she take a few days off. "I'm not hiding. I'm not running. He doesn't get to have that power over me anymore." She'd changed in those 4 months. Working with the veterans, organizing charity events, being part of something bigger than herself. It had rebuilt something inside her that she hadn't realized was broken. She stood taller now, spoke with more confidence. The scared girl who'd frozen when her shirt was torn had become a woman who knew her own worth. When the stranger walked into Dusty's on a Saturday night, the entire bar went silent. He looked different, sober, thinner, eyes carrying the weight of consequence. He stood in the doorway, scanning the room until his gaze landed on Maya behind the bar. Every Hell's Angel in the building stood up. Ryder moved forward, but Maya held up one hand, stopping him in his tracks. She walked out from behind the bar, Ryder's old jacket, which she'd kept and he'd told her to keep, draped over her arm. She approached the stranger until they stood face to face, and her voice when she spoke was steady as stone. "You don't scare me anymore," Maya said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You tried to break me to make me feel small and powerless, but all you did was show me who my real family is. Real men protect. Real strength isn't in taking what you want, it's in lifting others up. And real courage is choosing to forgive, even when someone doesn't deserve it." The stranger's face crumpled. He couldn't meet her eyes. His mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out. "I forgive you," Maya continued, "not because you've earned it, but because I refuse to carry your weight anymore. Now leave, and don't come back." The man turned and walked out without a word, shoulders hunched, defeated not by fists but by grace. Part 8. Redemption wears many faces. The sun set over the Nevada desert in shades of gold and crimson, painting the row of motorcycles outside the Hells Angels garage in warm light. Maya sat on the hood of Ryder's truck, watching the sky change colors, surrounded by the men who'd become her chosen family. Terrell had started college in the fall, calling her every Sunday to share stories about his classes, his new friends, the future opening up before him like a promise. Maya still worked at Dusty's, but now she also ran a nonprofit helping homeless veterans, something she'd started with the club's help and grown beyond anything she'd imagined. Ryder settled beside her, both of them quiet in that comfortable way people who truly understand each other can be. "You saved me that night," Maya said softly. "When that man tore my shirt and I felt like nothing, you showed me I was worth protecting." Ryder shook his head slowly, a slight smile tugging at his scarred face. "Nah, kid, you saved us. We were just angry men riding motorcycles trying to outrun our mistakes. You gave us purpose, showed us we could still do good in this world." Marcus walked over with bottles of cold water. Danny and old Joe close behind. They'd become her brothers in all the ways that mattered, checking on her, celebrating Terrell's good grades, showing up when she needed help moving furniture or when her car broke down. "Sometimes," Maya said, looking at each of them, "the people society fears the most are the ones who still believe in doing what's right. You all wear leather and scars instead of capes, but you're heroes just the same." Old Joe chuckled. "Never thought I'd live to see the day someone called me a hero." "Well, you are," Maya insisted. "All of you. You saw someone in trouble and you didn't look away. That's what heroes do." As darkness fell and stars began to appear in the vast Nevada sky, Maya thought about that night 4 months ago. The moment someone tried to break her, and instead, without knowing it, helped her discover her own strength. She'd learned that family isn't always blood, that redemption is possible for those brave enough to seek it, and that sometimes the very moment someone tries to destroy you becomes the moment you finally realize you're unbreakable. Ryder stood, offering her his hand. "Come on, little angel, let's get you home." She took his hand and smiled. Surrounded by her unlikely family, grateful for torn shirts and second chances, and the strange, beautiful way life sometimes works out. The scared waitress was gone. In her place stood Maya Thompson, survivor, advocate, friend, and living proof that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes salvation arrives on the back of a Harley Davidson, wearing leather and carrying more love than the world ever expected. If you were in their place, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. Your opinion matters. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Unbroken Gray Stories community. Where are you watching from?